Okay, so our customer wants to take this coin and make it in gold with diamonds. So all of those rings you just saw and all of those diamonds, we're going to marry all of that together into one new piece, and this is how we're going to do it. But to start, I have to get the diamonds out of the ring. So here's how I do that. All right, the first thing I did was cleaned my tray out so when these things start dropping, I can find them easy. I'm just going to take a cutoff disc and come in here and cut these prongs. One more. And then, in theory, boom. Nope, that one went over my right shoulder. All right, so what we are tasked with is our customer has this coin and he wants to make it in gold and set a bunch of diamonds in it and do all sorts of stuff to it. So I knew we'd probably have to make it 2 or 3 times to kind of work some details out. So here was the first one. And if you look at the difference from the side, you can see the first one was too thin, and that didn't really bother me. I was mostly just worried about heights and things of that nature. So then the next one, grab it, was we decided to place holes where all the diamonds were going to be, and we kind of liked it, but we wished this edge here was a little thicker, and it's still not quite as thick. Let me see if I can get it where you can see it. It's just not quite as thick as we want it. So now we're on version 3, and I think we're here. So now all of the modeling looks pretty good. All the holes look good. We now have a sprue attached, which is how we're going to cast it. We put a little ring on the top so we can hang it from a chain, and it's hard to see in the picture. I don't know, Anna, maybe if you can see, but we expanded this outer lip to match this one, so we've got a little heavier. We like that. And if you look from the side, now I think we've got the thickness, but it's going to be real heavy to cast. So that doesn't matter because this is a bag of the customer's gold. So weight was not an issue whatsoever. The heavier, the better. So that's kind of an advantage for us. So I guess the next thing is for us to actually cast it. All right, so now we're ready to cast this. But in order to cast it, I need to know how much this weighs, and I'll tell you why. So watch this. All right, first thing, my scale is set to penny weights. There are 20 penny weights in an ounce. So let's zero it out. It always comes to that. When I weigh that, that weighs 1.2 penny weights. Remember, it was negative 0.1, so we'll say 1.3. So remember that number. I'm going to ask you on a quiz here in a second. 1.3 penny weights. All right. I'm going to write on the bottom of this rubber base 1.3, and with a W, that means my wax is 1.3. Now, do you see this right here? That if you look at the original coin here, it doesn't have one. This is called the sprue, and it's spelled S-P-R-U-E. And a sprue is merely a passageway, and that is how the wax will get out and the gold will get in. So give me a second to get this sprued up. All right, so remember that wax weighed 1.3. Gold is 14 or so times heavier than wax. So I always cheat it up a little bit. So I use a conversion factor of 15. So if I take my wax weight of 1.3, multiply that times my 15 conversion, that tells me this is going to weigh 19.5 pennyweights, which, remember, there's 20 pennyweights to an ounce, so I'm going to say this is going to take an ounce to cast. All right, this liquid is called the surface tension reduction agent. See this cute little penguin that we're making with the fingerprint on it? But what it does is it just helps the plaster compound we're getting ready to use. It helps it bond at the molecular level. All right, next thing, this is a metal sleeve called the flask. I'm going to put it on here, and now you can see the piece is in there. All right, I'm making an executive decision here. See how close the top of that mold is to the top of this flask? I don't like that, so I'm going to swap this out before I go any further. It takes a half a second here. Carefully so you don't break it. And I'm going to go with a taller flask. Gives me more room at the top. All right, we've got to do this in 9 minutes exactly. All right, now we're going to put this on a vacuum cast machine, and we're going to vacuum this. And this white compound is called investment compound. Don't know why, that's just what they call it. It's like a plaster, but what we're going to do is we're going to vacuum it and get the air out of it. All right, so now that it's vacuuming, all that boiling action is the air coming out, and this machine is set up on a shaker table so I can sit there and give it a little assist and knock the air bubbles free. On a timer. All right, I'm ready to free it. Watch it drop. Now I'll just give it a couple of hits. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come right over here, and here's what we're casting. We're gonna pour the investment compound, but I don't wanna fill the flask all the way up, and I'll show you why here in just a second. All right, so the reason that we didn't want to fill the flask completely up, because as I'm getting ready to vacuum them one more time, when you start vacuuming the flask, it's going to raise it up, and if I filled it, see it starting to bubble, if I would have filled it all the way to the top, it would just overflow. Okay, so now, because we have delicate waxes in there, I'm not going to get super aggressive with this shaker table. I'm just barely going to tap it, and I'd rather have a little air bubble show up on a piece than have my wax break inside there. There we go, right on the money. Go. I don't like it. I got to redo it. See that little hole, that little pinhole right there? There's one right over here, a little one here, little one here. They're fixable, but I wasn't really sure that I was going to like the model that I cut. So what did I do? Made a few changes, very minor, and I made another one. So now I'm going to recast it and see if I can't take care of that. Oops. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to anneal this. And yeah, I could have cut that sprue off. We'll do that in a minute, but I kind of like, because it's so heavy, the reason I left the sprue on is because now it's not sitting right on this plate. I've got a little space there, so I think it'll just help me a little bit. And what this does is it just, in a nutshell, it kind of relaxes the molecule and it makes the metal a lot more malleable. And if you've got a set as many diamonds as I do, you want that metal to move as easy as you can get it to move. So we'll just get this to red hot here in a second and pickle it, and then we'll see what it looks like. It's so heavy, it just took it a while to get up to red hot. All right, now that we have this piece cast, now we're going to start the cleanup and polish process. And if you'll look at the back here, that discoloration is just from the process. But I need to get this smooth. So this is a piece of 220 sandpaper. It's pretty aggressive. And what I'm going to do is just kind of work that back out. And I did this when it was in the wax, but kind of see the highs and lows. So I'm going to sit here and do this for a little bit till I get that worked out. All right, let's take a look. All right, we're close enough. We'll still have to do some work on this, but that's close enough. Now, on the front of this, we don't have much surface that's raised up. So for that, I'm going to switch over to a 320 sandpaper. And let's smooth that front off and take a look at that. All right, let's take a look. Brush this off. All right, so now we've got all the high spots that are going to eventually be high polish done. The letters we left just a little bit recessed. So now what we got to start doing is prepping all these holes for all the diamonds. So let's start on that. All right, I think the first thing we're going to do is just go in here, drill everything out, and kind of get the holes starting to get them uniform. All right, so now one of the reasons I didn't quite finish this, you can see a little scratches down there, was because I knew when I drilled them that I'd have to come back in here and do some other work on it, and I haven't done the stones in the corners yet, but it's starting to go somewhere. Okay, now I'm just going to take a small little round burr and just kind of touch into all these holes. All right, now we are back on to this piece right here, and we're getting ready to start doing some of the stone setting on it. So first off, Anna, kind of zoom in here for me. This is a diamond, and it has the same shape as a diamond. Let me get my hand, I'm out of the camera here. And this burr right here is, if you'll notice from this part of the burr down, has the exact same shape as the diamond. So this is called a stone setting burr. Although the ones I'm going to set are smaller, I just use this bigger one to show you what kind of tool I'm using here. So I have already gone through and kind of drilled everything out and evened it up. Now what I'm going to do is go in here and basically just cut a seat for all of those stones. Now, if you zoom down here, look at my tray here, as you can see what we're doing here, that all of these diamonds here, here are 1.3 millimeters. These here, and here are 1.3 millimeters. The corners are bigger, they're 2 millimeters. This one's 3 millimeter. And these in the corner are a little smaller. So, these are, actually those are emeralds, and this is a ruby going in here. So anyway, we're only working right now on the 1.3. So I've just got to go along here and just basically cut seats for everything, and just it's kind of by feel. I kind of know how deep I want them to go. So anyway, just a whole lot of doing this for a while. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in here, and this is triple E, and I'm just going to knock off the little flashings that happen when you cut into metal like this. I'm not really trying to polish it because this is going to have a sandblasted finish, but I kind of want all those little flashings to go away. That's good enough. I want to show you something. This diamond, if you look right in that little hole, you'll see there's a tiny diamond in there. This is something called a leverage gauge. And you'll see that that diamond measures 1.3 millimeters. Okay? So now, we've kind of gone through and broken these out. Now, all of these rings all of these diamonds came from several different rings. This is all old customer rings and the customer's gold and everything. So let me see if I can get this one. Now, if you'll look here, that one is about 1.35, 1.36 millimeters. So all of the holes that I have currently drilled and seated along here are probably more along this tray than this tray. But if you'll look right here, you'll see I've already got one diamond sitting in there. So let me show you how I'm going to hold it in place. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right here, and I'm just going to put a little mark in the metal. I'm going to turn it around, go opposite that, and put another little mark. And this tool I'm using is called a graver, and it's a number 51. And what it's doing is it's a process called raising a bead. I just pushed gold over that stone. Now I'm going to come to the other side, the first one I did, rock this back and forth, and it will move that metal, and that stone is now permanently in place. Now I just got to do that, 1,000 more times or something like that across here. So anyway, wish me luck. All right, we got our first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, our first 7. So now I'm going to set these 7, then this 7, then the 7 across the bottom. So, and my hand still works. Another row set, looking good. All right, so now we've got that done. The next thing we've got to do is set these, but not the corners, but everything but the corners. The last 2 diamonds that are this size, I'm about to set, and I'm just going to set them for you and show you in real time how long it takes. Once you get everything laid out and drilled out and seats cut, there's one. Okay, and this is a number 51 graver, and this process is called raising a bead. Oops, somebody's at the door. I've got all of those stones that were the same size set. Now for all of the corners, it's these gemstones and diamonds here. And this was a lot of the gentleman's jewelry that he just had over the years that was broken or missing a stone or something like that, and he wanted to combine it all into one piece. So they're all different sizes, so that's kind of what a trick here was. So now, if you'll look down here, Anna, This was when we laid it out. We've got all of the stones marked because we weighed everything. So now I've got to find, all right, the emeralds are easy. They're green. The ruby's easy. So if you'll look here, this is 3 millimeters, 2 millimeters, 2 millimeters, 2 millimeters. And this one right up here is 3.5 millimeters. And they're all in that tray right there. I just got to measure them and set them. So now you can see I've got all but what, 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, all but 5 stones set. And the reason is, I think my next step is I'm going to do a sandblasting on this to put a real cool textured finish on the backside. And this diamond here, and I knew this when I started, is just a little too tall and it's going to poke through the bottom a little bit, so I'm going to set that one last. And then emerald, 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 ruby. So I'm going to set those, but I've got everything seated, and I've got all of the prongs kind of set up for it. And also across the top right here, I'm now starting to blend the bail in and kind of round it out and trim it out to make it kind of look a little better. Let me, I'll just set the stones in here and show you what it's going to look like here when we're done. All right, so this is basically what it's going to look like with the stones set in it. So now, I don't know, I'll probably do some more kind of clean up and polish work on it before I sandblast it. I don't know. Once you sandblast it, you're at the end. So I just want to make sure I'm done before I get to that step. All right, that shine is about to go away any second now. We're going to take, when we turn this sandblaster on, it's got very fine sand, and we're just going to basically shoot this thing and put a sandblast finish on it. So let's give it a whirl. So now we're getting ready to set those emeralds. I have everything pretty much pre-seated, and I did that before I did the sandblasting. And then you can see here now I've just kind of started to smooth the high areas off. This is going to be high polished, but it's kind of funny that sometimes you get to the end of something like this, and you know, I'm down to 5 stones to set and a final clean up and polish, and it's done. And it's like, wow. Finally, after all of these weeks, we've been working on this thing about 5 or 6 weeks. Oops, shit, that's not what I wanted to do. That's all right, I can fix it. All right. Now, we've got 2 of the emeralds in. Now, we're going to set the 3rd emerald. Those are the tricky ones, by the way. Emeralds are real soft, and they'll break on you if you look at them wrong. So that's 2. And what I did, where that little mistake was, the little piece of metal, they're not held in by much because they don't need a whole lot. But a little piece of that metal wanted to break off. So I just took a laser welder and went in there and just added metal back. Took me 3 minutes, and now we're good as new. So now we're going to have to set the emerald I just dropped in my tray somewhere here. All right, here we go for the 3rd emerald. Don't break. Don't break. So far, so good. Last one. getting there. All right, now for the ruby. All right, here goes the ruby. And what I want you to notice, this is just a pro tip for the other jewelers. When I set my 51 graver, instead of just pushing forward, I'm going to rock it back and forth and then push over. It just kind of clears the metal around it, gives you a little bit more working room. This should be my last one. All right, one more stone to go. All right, now what's tricky about this? All right, Anna, get where you can zoom in on that diamond. And because I knew this long ago, I'm gonna run my finger along the back of the pendant and watch this. Well, there it is. See how the bottom, the culet, which is the point of a diamond, it barely sticks through, but it wasn't gonna be that big of an issue. So what I've gotta do, if you'll look at my bench tray, well, let me turn it over to where I have what I'm looking for here. Okay, so right here, that little hole in my bench pin is specifically, when I'm doing something like this, that I can kind of find where that hole is, and it won't push the diamond up on me while I'm trying to set it. But I gotta find it and kind of give me a second to center in on it. All right, here goes prong number one. It's kind of tricky trying to find that little hole. So tell you what, y'all have seen me do this, so I'm not gonna bore you with me setting this last diamond. I'll just show it to you when it's done. Well, looky there. All right, all the diamonds are set, so now all we lack is finishing up. It's getting there, ain't it? All right, so now what I've got to do is I need to polish the top of the letters, and they are actually below this, the next high spots. We kind of did that on purpose so they wouldn't really ever get worn out. But I don't want to affect the sandblast finish around it, so let me show you how I'm going to do that. All right, so this is a hard felt buff mounted on my flex shaft, and as you can see, it's brand new because I had to order it specifically for this because I probably haven't used one of these in 20 years. So first, if you look down here, I'm going to charge it with Triple E, which is a cutting agent, and I'm going to very carefully just hit the top of the letters, putting very little pressure on. And let me get done and we'll see how it looks. All right, now we're going to take and use some yellow rouge, which should put a higher polish than what the Triple E leaves. So we're just going to barely hit it real quick. All right, so it either worked or it didn't. Let's throw it in the cleaner and see what happens. All right, so we got to see if we did what I wanted to do, which was put a high polish on the letters, but not affect the finish behind All right, let's set it down here. It looks good. I think I need a little bit more polish on them. Let me work on that just a minute. We thought we were done, but we weren't. When I was polishing the tops of the letters, this slipped from my hand just a little bit, and I kind of got into that sandblast finish. So I want to correct that. It's fairly simple. I just took fingernail polish and kind of painted everything that I don't want to get sandblasted, and all I just got to touch up is this one little spot right here. So I did all of them. I may just touch up around the letters a little bit, but we'll just sandblast it, then we'll throw it in fingernail polish remover, and all that'll dissolve away. Right. So now we've engraved the back of it, what needed to be engraved, and the very last thing we have to do is put the bail on. So let me solder this real quick and we'll see what it looks like. All right, all we gotta do is solder this joint right here. Like magic. All right, so here we go. Are we done? I think we've been working on this 6 weeks, 8 weeks. All right, let's let it dry and we'll show you a good picture.